All right, so looking at what we've covered so far, from local storage, asynchronous JavaScript, array methods on the DOM. So I think we are here to cover regular expressions. I'm not sure if any of the instructor took this topic, and also Sass and Tailwind. What I'm going to do first, right now, is to talk about CSS frameworks. So that's what I said earlier. Just cover this a bit before jumping into Firebase. All right, so let me first close this code editor. Okay. All right, so we have a bunch of CSS frameworks, right? We have Bootstrap, we have Tailwind, and basically Bootstrap. Basically, you end up using them, in a very similar fashion. With a very similar fashion. So let's see, Tailwind. All right. So in our curriculum, of course, we want to show you how to use Tailwind, because Tailwind is basically a utility-based CSS framework, right? So where you build nice stuff, by using a bunch of utilities, right? You can see we have the width, height, W24, H24. So you don't necessarily have to style all these stuff from scratch, right? But it's up to you. They have really nice set of utilities that you can use without having to create any CSS style from scratch, right? You see how dynamic this is. So we're going to talk about this, and we have something similar, something more. I don't want to say old-fashioned, but it's kind of what we've been using for a very long time. They have a bunch of advancements, of course, a bunch of new releases for Bootstrap, and it's something you can also check out, right? It's really easy to use, and it's based on a bunch of templates, or what we call boilerplates. They have also examples that you can simply work with, right? So let's assume you want to implement an header. They have a bunch of headers already implemented for you, sidebars already implemented as well. All you have to do is pick those snippets, and it would work automatically for you. We're going to do a very quick setup, right? So let's go back to the documentation. As you can see, this is getbootstrap.com. This is also tailwindcss.com. We're not going to build a very massive project with these frameworks. I'm just going to show you how to get started with it, how to use it, and it's quite easy. We have all you have to do is to use the CDN. We call them the CDN links. Basically, you can also use these frameworks by installing the NPM package, but that is when we'll start working with NPM and Vue and all that. So for now, we're simply going to use the CDN. CDN basically stands for Content Development Network. So what I'm going to do is to simply create a new project. So let's do that here. Let's create a new folder. I'm simply going to call this Bootstrap. I hope you can see my screen. So I'm going to open this with Visual Studio Code. All right, so as I said earlier, we're not going to spend a lot of time trying to implement something very heavy. So simply put, I'm going to create a very simple file here, index.html. Let me zoom in to make sure you can see this properly. So we have the index.html file, and we're also going to create like main.css, right? And within the main.css file, within the index file, we're simply going to bring in our boilerplate here. But something we're going to do instead is copy the snippet we have here. This snippet currently contains the Bootstrap 5.2 CDN link, right? This is what would activate Bootstrap on this file. So basically, I'm going to copy the whole thing and replace with what I have here. So now we have the script, which is the Bootstrap JavaScript file, and also the Bootstrap CSS file. So you can see that here, CSS and JS. All right, so now the idea is if I should go ahead and open this up on my browser, which is this index file, we're going to have Bootstrap activated on this file already. So taking a look, if you take a look at this, hello world, you see that this is not the default font I have here. We can also inspect to see, using the browser tool, the developer tool, we can inspect to see, the style to verify as well that this is basically working with a style that we did not create ourselves, right? And this style is coming from this, the Bootstrap file. Okay, so how do we also verify this? Let's go back to the Bootstrap documentation. And what I'm going to do is simply, let's go down to the, let's just scroll down. You see, we have a bunch of utilities, right? We have like the form utilities or the form styles. We have these various components like buttons. So I'm simply going to click on button here, and I'm going to try to, reuse this button basically. So I'm just going to copy the whole thing here. Let us drop it here within the body. So create a div, and I'm going to put a class called container. So this is basically part of Bootstrap. Container is going to create. Let's put it at the top here as container. So container is basically going to create this. It's going to create this kind of container, right, where you have this space margin on the left and right, and then things are centered properly. So it's going to give us that container. And as you can see, we have the buttons, right here with the style. We necessarily did not style this ourselves. This is basically coming from the Bootstrap library, right? So you see, you have a bunch of samples you can use. You have accordion, you have alert. So let's assume, you are trying to do authentication, and maybe it fails. You want to probably show an error occurred, or maybe you want to show password and user combination is wrong. Basically, you can use that style. So let's look for that particular style. We want danger, right? So the style danger, the alert danger would give us that particular style we're looking for. So let's take this off. Let's paste it in. We save, back to the browser, and then we refresh. So you see we have a simple danger alert. Check it out. You can change those values, of course. An error occurred. Please check username and password combination. So I just saved that, and let's refresh. So you see an error occurred. Please check username and password combination. Bootstrap is really, it makes things faster for you. You can see we have modal, we have navigation bar. You're trying to implement a navigation bar, and you don't necessarily want to build that from scratch. We have a bunch of samples. You see, this is a simple navigation bar, and this is the code base, right? So, and of course, it's responsive as well. And we have a bunch of samples, right? We really have a bunch of samples. We would also check out the examples when we're done. These are just sample snippets, to show you the functionalities of Bootstrap, and how you can create some of these things. You see, we even have like a loading spinner, right? We have a loading spinner that you can just reuse. All you have to do is copy and paste this into your code, and this would give you the spinner. We still have toast notification. So a toast notification is basically this kind of pop-up, right? That you can definitely take off. It comes up and you can close it. Show live toast. So you see, we have this toast right here. You can close it. So I think Bootstrap 5, has a bunch of features that makes a lot of sense, right? So you see, this is implemented already. All you have to do is utilize it within your own code base. And we even have some sample JavaScript code that will make this work in terms of the trigger, right? So this is what triggers that particular modal and brings up that modal. So basically you can check it out. Let's create something really simple with this. So what I'm going to do is to look for forms, right? So let's work with forms. I'm basically going to put in an input group, and that input group will probably just contain like username and password. So let's do that. Let's do that. I think that sample I just linked is fine. So all I have to do is back to the code. I'm just going to put this in here. So we have a form. Close this. All right, so we have the input group. So if I come back here and go ahead and I refresh, so you see we have that username. Next, I'm going to bring in the password. So the password field, so this is going to be placeholder of password and label, of course, password. Yeah, so we are also going to put the type password. Let's change this type to email as well. And this should be email. Let's just change this to email. I think that is fine. Okay, so if I refresh, so you see now we have the email, we have password. We're working with the form group basically, which is not necessary that you must do that. You can decide to have it in 2 lines, if that's what you want. So you can have this in 2 lines, you can pick up the span. Basically, you see that some of those, someone is asking, sorry, where is border spines? You mean border spinner? Yeah, you can check it out. Yeah, you can check out the documentation. Check spinner, and you'll definitely see a bunch of examples there. So yeah, we're actually talking about forms, right? So you see we have a bunch of form styles. So you can reuse these styles, if you prefer working with frameworks to make your workflow faster. You can use these options. The thing is, when it comes to customizing things, it becomes very difficult because you already have a bunch of options, and you don't want to start writing a lot of CSS files that would clash with some of the defaults, right? And at the same time, you don't want to edit the defaults from Bootstrap. So you have to you have to really practice, you have to really practice so that it will be easier for you, to work with some of these predefined examples, right? So yeah, so just ensure you check it out, and if you have any questions while you practice, you can always reach out on the server. You can always ask questions. But of course, I said we're going to check out the example. So we have a bunch of predefined examples here for your hero sections, for your headers, and I think it's something you should check out. So you see we have like a complete example for a pricing page, a checkout form, and all you have to do basically is just reuse this, right? You don't necessarily need to do anything special here. All you have to do is reuse this, probably download the code base, and yeah, you can have fun working with those components, right? So you see we have sidebars, we have footers. Yeah, so we have a bunch of footers. So just check it out. They are showing you like some of the possibilities when it comes to working with Bootstrap. So if you really want to come up with something simple, you don't have like a predefined design from a UI UX designer, then this is fun to use, right? When you have a predefined design and the designer is not working with Bootstrap in their code base, maybe they're not working with the Bootstrap design library, then it will be difficult for you to always adjust every single component you're working with, right? But of course, you can click on download source code, and you can download some of these items. I'm just going to cancel this because I don't need it. But you can download it, open it up, explore, and check out some of these examples. You can download the examples from here, right? This is the Bootstrap source code, and these are the examples. So you can download the examples by simply clicking on this, and that will download the examples. Okay, so yeah, so just go to getbootstrap.com, visit documentation, and check out the layouts, the grid. I think they have the 12 grid columns as well. So check out the grid, check out the gutters, check out the several grid utilities as well. Yeah, okay. So let's talk about Tailwind, right? So you see, integrating Bootstrap to your project is quite easy. All you have to do with the CDN link, you can just drop this in here and you start playing around with Bootstrap, right? And the other pattern is to have Bootstrap installed in your project. If you're using if you're working on like a Node or NPM based project, you can have Bootstrap installed on your system. I mean, on the project, right? You can have it installed on the project. And yeah, the other option is to download Bootstrap itself, like what I did here. I canceled it though. You can download Bootstrap itself and integrate it into your projects so that you can probably work offline if you would want to work offline, right? So I can download the source code just like this, sorry, that's a mistake. It's okay. So I can open up the source code. So you see we have, this is basically the source code. So you see we have CSS, basically pick the JS file, bootstrap.js, the bootstrap.css. The minified version is also a bit. So this is a bundle, carrying this and all those stuff. Or you can pick the main. As a matter of fact, you can download that as well. I'm sure we should have a link to download that from here. You can also check out the Bootstrap Codepen demo, and remember this is open source, of course, so you can. But of course, you can choose to download and link these files if you want to. You see we have both files here, so you can choose to download them and include them in your project, or just use the link, which is my preferred pattern of working. Just use the CDN link, and you can proceed with your work. If you have any questions, I'm currently taking a look at the chat, so I'll be able to take your questions as well. Next is, I'm going to close this for now. Next is Tailwind. So Tailwind is, a bit different in the sense that you basically do everything with D for medium, you have BG for big, background, sorry, BG for background, and then you have height, you have width, you have, I think PT should be padding top, yeah. So you have a bit of a bunch of utilities you can play around with. There are advanced ways to use Tailwind, but the have this run on your project or on your so probably you can utilize the CDN, but I think one of the major ways to use this is by installing Tailwind directly inside your project. That's if you're basically using probably work but for this use case is also integrate this directly using the CDN, right? And I think it's the Tailwind documentation, because then you can see how to play around with this using, this is the CDN, right? So we can play around with the CDN. Let us work with the CDN right here. So what I'm going to do is okay, so let's come back, right, which is here. I'm going to replace what we have here. Let's save this and let's go back to our browser. I think I have that closed already. Okay, so I'm simply going to open this up again. So now we're changing things already. Okay, all right, so now you can see I'm currently running the same file, but this file is currently using Tailwind CSS. So you see I have underline. If I take off underline and I refresh, you see that the underlining, let's see, refresh. Okay, did I save that properly? Let's verify. Okay. Let's see what is wrong here. Okay, so I think something is probably wrong with this file, because okay. So what I'm going to do, I think this is still showing Bootstrap. Let me close this, right? Delete this. Also take this off. So let's open this again. I renamed this while it was open, so I think that was the problem. Yeah. All right. Right. It was open and that was the problem. So I'm going to open this up again. Okay. So and right now I can go ahead inside the index.html. and take this off and save, and then we can preview to see what happens. So you see that goes off, right? So we're currently working with the CDN, and then we can play around with a bunch So what I'm going to do is let's go down to the core concepts. So you see, this is a utility first. This is kind of like a simple guide, to working with utility first component. So right now you see we have a very simple example here. Something giving you the chat notification, which is basically this set of styles that you have right here. And when working with Tailwind, you don't necessarily need to create these styles yourself, right? If you want to work with this is an example. You can simply create this, by setting the padding, the max. I think this is kind of like the max width, the background, right? So we can change this background. Let us verify what we have right now by just simply refreshing this. So you see we have that chat. We don't have the icon there because we did not, we don't have it right here, of course. But yeah, we can simply download it, right? If you want us to, you can simply download. I think it's an SVG. It's an SVG. So I doubt if we can just grab it like that, except we might have to, yeah, we might have to grab that from here. We can definitely do that from here. And I'm sure you know how to do this already, but of course, you can grab an SVG item, just like this. This marks the beginning of the SVG file. So of course, you can edit this as HTML and grab this whole item into an SVG. So if I have an image and then I have logo.svg, right? So I can just paste this in here, save this, and let's see what we have now. I keep in the wrong browser, so let's see if this would work. So we have image logo.svg. Let's take this off. Image logo.svg. Okay. All right. So you see we have this. We're able to extract it directly, and this looks great, right? We did not have to create every single like style. We did not create every single style. We have those styles implemented. For example, the flex is doing what the flex should do. So if I take off flex, you see that flex function goes off, right? So I believe you understand that flex is basically having this item sit side by side with the logo. So if I bring that back, our flex comes back here. If I take off the padding, padding 6, so let's see. You see what we have. We no longer have that padding. So of course, we can adjust the padding. Let's do padding 9. So let's refresh. So you see, we have more space around this item. So this is how you work with Tailwind. And there are a bunch of utilities you can also use. Like if I click on the the states, you can set hover states. Simply by doing something like this. So you see, we have the hover. Then you say on hover, give us background sky 700, right? So on hover, change to this color, right? Does that mean we can change the color? Of course, yes, you can. Let me show you. So this is giving us like a specific font type, text slate 500. I'm going to refresh this again. So now we have text slate 500, which is right here. You have a new message. Let us change this to see this is our message. So if I refresh this, you see we have this is our message, right? So what if we choose to change this to blue, right? Let's see. So I refresh this, now you see this is having the color blue, right? What if we choose to change this to red? So first off, text red, changes the color, right? Text red, so you have text and you have red. If you have DG red, it means it's going to give you like a background, right? You see the background, right? So that's the background. Okay, so text red, so that's the utility functions we're talking about, or the utility classes we're talking about. So text red, and then you have, the colors have levels of, intensity. So basically, you can set this to 100, I think down to 900. So when you set this to 100, you see this is giving you a very opaque value. Let's use 900. Let's see what we have here. So you see, this is basically very deep, right? So let's work with like 600. 600 is going to give you something bright. Of course, we expect that should be bright. 400, 300. So you can adjust, these colors, as based on what you want, of course, right? So this is the background, right? So basically, you see we have this button, and you are able to change. So by default, you say this is the button I want, right? Give me a background sky of 500, and then you have this background, right? A sky color of 500, and you say on hover, change the color. So can we play around with this? Let's see. So if I paste this in here, background sky 500, this is what we have, right? And we say, okay, when you hover, give us green 700, and we refresh. So you see that works automatically. So this is nice, right? This is nice. The fact that you can do a bunch of stuff with this is nice. But we always advise that you practice and you understand what you're doing, instead of just depending on these libraries, right? But it's great to see that you can actually do a lot. You can actually even apply pseudo elements, right? Instead of doing that manually, you can apply pseudo elements using Tailwind as well. This is what makes a Tailwind in a way superior to a Bootstrap, the fact that you can actually do and have a bunch of customization. So I think the disadvantage most times is that you end up having a whole lot of classes, and sometimes it can be confusing. Yeah, but I think if you really know what you're doing and you structure things properly, you can definitely manage the code base, right? You can manage the code base. But yeah, so as you can see, you have a bunch of things you can do. You can even set, dark and light mode, right? Using Tailwind, you can say when we're on the dark mode, this should happen, which means if I go ahead and paste this right now, this is what you're going to get. So if I paste this right now, back to my browser, and I run this, so now you see we're having that dark mode, basically because my laptop by default is on the dark mode. If I change my, if I go to my preference on my laptop, yeah, and I change, I think that should be from the general, I'm not sure. Of course, no one likes dark light mode, but let's see. You see that, we automatically have that light mode activated, because we just changed the theme of our machine, right? So you see we have light mode. We'll go back to dark mode, which is, yeah, so you see we have the dark mode activated. So this is basically working with the browser, API to detect this and, come up with that transformation automatically. So Tailwind is nice, right? Tailwind is great. We would also explore Tailwind and Bootstrap when we start working with Vue, because then I will be able to show you how to use the npm, right, to install these packages. Though the documentation is straightforward and it's easy to grab, but we'll definitely explore that as well. So yeah, you can also check out responsive designs. When to use SM. So you can say if this specific item when we are on the medium screen, use a width of 32. When we're on a large screen, use a width of 48, right? So you can apply LG or MG to even your font type, right? So your font. So giving a quick example, this is a quick example. Yeah. So we're just working with the examples found on the documentation, which is basically the best way to explain some of these things. So we have this card. Unfortunately, the sidebar did not show up. So what we're going to do, of course, is to inspect this again and grab that image. Okay. Of course, you can use any other local image you have on your laptop, but I just want to bring in this image. How do I get that image? Okay, so let's see. Okay, so let's not waste a bunch of time. What I'm going to do is go down to pictures, GitHub. I have a nice image from here, Geeky World. Let's move this image into our design. Yeah, so let's change this to g.jpg, and then I'm simply going to do /image g.jpg. Okay, so let's refresh this. So this is what we have here, and using Tailwind, we've been able to set a bunch of things like on the medium screen size, use a width of 48, right? Yeah, so we have a bunch of I think we can test this. So let's inspect and let's try to adjust. So you see, Tailwind was able to detect this and make that adjustment automatically. Of course, using Flex as well. So you see, we have the MD, the max width, 2XL. I think this is by default what you get on the medium screen size, and on the medium screen size as well, apply the Flex, right? So you see, you are able to set these options instead of writing responsive code using media queries. You can do this, right? H-full, you're just doing a bunch of media query adjustment, right? So this is your media queries, to make this adjustment automatically right within the HTML file. So you're not using any CSS file, you're not writing any CSS. One thing is you have to try as much as possible to remember most of these stuff. But of course, as you begin to use them, you will get used to it, right? And it becomes easier for you to create things like this. And it's a bit more easy to customize as compared to Bootstrap, right? So you see, you can basically customize this, and it's easier to even remember some of these things. So yeah, so you can check it out. Ask your questions if you have any. Always feel free to come around and ask your questions on the server. Just ensure you read through, starting from the utility first fundamentals. Try to understand the idea of working with utilities. Working with fonts, working with colors. Working with so working with buttons. Working with the hover states, which is where we talk about working with states, right? So hover, focus, and other states. Then also understand their responsive design system, which is working with the media queries classes, right? And they're also working with the modes, dark mode and light mode. Then even reusing some of your styles. And as a matter of fact, you can add some custom styles. Tailwind is really amazing. Try as much as possible to explore. But of course, we're going to teach you and work with pure CSS when we're building our stuffs, because we want you to see a lot of possibilities. When you explore pure CSS and you make mistakes, you're able to understand why you make those mistakes and how best to fix those mistakes when you are working in a real world environment. So that's why we tend to use some of those options. And so if you have any question, go ahead and ask me. It is more flexible than Bootstrap. Yeah, correct, it is. Okay, so speaking of Firebase, Firebase is simply an app platform. It's an app development platform, and to make it easier for you to build your front end without necessarily using or needing a backend. So it will serve as a backend for you. It's mostly used by front end and mobile developers, because then you don't necessarily need to build like a backend server. You can deploy your database, you can write functions, you can deploy those functions on Firebase, and then you can call those functions from the front end application. So you see, you can check this website out, firebase.google.com. You can check out the video here. You can also try a demo, click on it, and I already have an account, right? So you definitely have to create an account. Of course, with your Google account, right? You just set up your account, and then in order to access the dashboard, you click on Go to Console. And this is just a very simple introductory session. We're not going to really write any code or build anything here. We'll do that in the next session. You can check this detail. I always love to read some of these things, because then you will be able to understand, like, the reason for the existence of some of these platforms, because the developers will definitely explain this to you. So you can actually build on Firebase. You can set up authentication. You can create users. You can even do what we call federated authentication, where you had external authentication source, like signing with social media and those kind of stuff like Facebook, Google, and the rest of them. So you can embed that into your Firebase app, right? And you can also set up extra monitoring services, like what we call Crashlytics, which is what you use for monitoring what is happening on your application. You can even deploy your Vue or your static web application to Firebase, which we're going to do together. We'll build a very simple page, deploy it on Firebase, test it on Firebase, and I'll show you how these things work live, right? You can embed Google Analytics, Yeah, and yeah, you can also use it for A/B testing, cloud messaging. You can even use it for push notifications, like the push notifications you get on WhatsApp and the rest of them. You can implement stuff like that using Firebase. If you're a mobile developer, of course, yeah, you can definitely do. You can do a lot with Firebase. Firebase, to me, I think I would describe it as um, a minified version of Google Cloud, focused on mobile and web development for web developers. So you don't have to face the entire robust cloud service of offering from Google. You can use Firebase to do some of the most important things that you want to do as a mobile or web developer, and that's why we added this to what we'll be covering during the course of this training, right? So Firebase is really interesting. We would create data on Firebase, and using our front end, we will be able to create or delete or even add this set of data to Firebase. And of course, I would give you at the end of the training session, I would give you a bunch of example, right? I already have a bunch of example on Firebase. For CloudFront, and this was gotten from Code Lab, Firebase Code Lab. So there's this Code Lab online that you can access, and then you can check out some of the examples they have. Some of them might be outdated, I'm not sure, but of course I'll check it out again before sharing with you. So you can create cloud functions, so you can call those functions from the code base. You can also create you can do web hosting, right? And you can also work with the database in here. So simply put, you see, we actually have a bunch of platforms using Firebase, of course, as expected. You can always check out the news, the events, the blogs, and we have a bunch of sample code on how to do some of these things, like authenticating a new user with JavaScript, Firebase auth. You're authenticating a new user based on the users that you already have account to the platform, right? So you can perform authentication here, and you see if a user is signed in or not. You can actually perform real-time reading and writing. So you can create you can create something on your Firebase database in the Firestore, and when you write something in there, you can automatically show that stuff on your web application without having to refresh. That's why it's called real-time database, right? So this is an example code based on how to subscribe to a topic. Basically, when you're performing notifications, right? So I have to click on, see, we don't have JavaScript here because, of course, this is mobile based. So if you're writing a mobile application, which we're not doing as front-end guys, but yeah, that functionality is here. For notifications, right? So let us leave this for now. This is basically how you would write into your database. It basically works like a NoSQL database, which I would explain to you in the next session better. Yeah. So let's just go to the console and see what it looks like before we end the session for today. Okay. All right, so basically looking at the console, you see I have a sample, test project here. When you want to create a project, all you have to do is to add a new project. I'm not going to do that right now because of time. I'm just going to click on the previous project I have created, to show you what the dashboard for every project looks like. So this is a project I just selected, which is a test project. And yeah, you see what can you do here basically. So when I click on build, you see we have a bunch of functionalities, for authentication. We can actually set up authentication and manage our list of users right here, right? We can also add more multiple sign-in methods. Right now we're using email and password. We can add new providers like Google, Facebook, Apple authentication, GitHub authentication, Microsoft authentication directly from here. And it reduces the amount of code base that you have to write if you want to do that manually. So we see we have a bunch of templates as well that you can automatically, and this template is talking about the email templates, right? So when somebody wants to verify their email, this is the sample template they receive. When you're doing password resets, multi-factor enrollment, SMS notification, you can enable those stuff directly from Firebase. You're definitely going to enjoy using Firebase as well as we proceed. What else can we do here? Of course, the Firebase database, which is one of the options we're really going to use. So we create data, we store data in here, and we can retrieve them from our application. We don't have any collection right now, but of course you can create a new collection like blog, and then you can start adding documents, right? So documents, basically, you're saying, the item within that blog, right? You've created a collection, let's assume like a folder, and then you have multiple documents within that folder, right? And within that document, you now have what we call fields. So the blog is like the container. The blog, you have a lot of blogs, right? So let's assume we write a blog intro, probably intro to just Firebase. But of course, that's you need to end up having like the fields. So, for example, the blog title, which is a string, so we can have introduction to Firebase. And we're going to do this from our code, not necessarily doing it from here. I'm just showing an example. You can have like who is the author of this item. So let's say we have, let's say who is the what's the body, right? The description. So this is a simple blog, right? And then you can save this, and automatically you have a record, within your database. So you see we have that record. So you can have multiple records, and then you can pull this record down into your code. You can also delete the record. You can delete the collection. So yeah, so you have the collection, you have the document, and you have the records, which is a collection of the several fields. All right. So this would make up one document, right? So you can have multiple collections for blog, for maybe comments and stuff like that. And yes, so we are really going to focus a lot on the Firestore database, the hosting, where we have to host static pages, and most of this hosting you do them for free. You can also integrate and add like your custom domain name, but of course we'll check this out. So we're going to focus on hosting, the database, and the authentication. Because most of the other features you would end up using them if you're doing mobile, right? But I would explain them, just that we won't use them. You can also do storage here, which means you can upload files, right? Videos, music, and those kind of stuff. So this is a very good way to work with the cloud. If you're a beginner working with a cloud service, Firebase is a very good way to start working with some kind of cloud services without having to use things like AWS, Microsoft Azure, and Google Cloud. It's easier, and it's a minified version of those things, and it also gives you those analytics and testing features that I think you need if you want to really manage and run a successful website or web app. So we're going to take a look at this, and I hope that this simple introduction or introductory session, at least made you understand the core functionality of Firebase. So when we work on the example in next. So the next session is basically going to be code heavy, right? We're going to write a lot of code. I would show you how to create this stuff. We'll deploy websites, we'll write functions. So you have to be ready. I'm going to drop an assignment, or I would ask the team. I would share the assignment to the team, and the assignment will be dropped between now and 10 a.m. tomorrow morning. So once you get the assignment, you have a period of 5 to 6 days to work on the assignment and submit the assignment. This time around, the assignment will be submitted via a form. We're not going to be submitting via the Comrade bot, because I think a lot of people still have problems submitting their assignments, even though there's a video explaining that. So it's kind of weird, but yeah, we'll work with the form. If you have any question, go ahead and drop. So someone is saying, is Firebase better than Netlify? I mean, they are different. They're basically different. They are different domains. Netlify is basically Netlify, not Netlify. Netlify is basically for hosting, right? Hosting your web app or website. Firebase gives you more like authentication, like storage, like notification, push notifications, like the database feature, real-time database. So it's way more than Netlify. But of course, you can, if you already know Netlify, you can use Netlify to host while connecting to like a Firebase for database, or for push notification, or for any other service, right? Firebase is free. They have like free packages. Of course, you have to pay after some, to use some features and after some time. But you can host your website absolutely for free. I think forever, right? If it's a very simple website, maybe until you add your custom domain name, then you can start paying for more, as you grow. But of course, you can use it for free, for a lot of things, right? I don't think I've really paid, to use Firebase. Most of my services, though, I don't use Firebase for building like production applications, but that's a personal decision. I know of a lot of production applications running on Firebase that you are even using, right? Most of the apps you use, currently use a lot of Firebase services. So Firebase is free, and they also have payment options, when you start using some services. Okay, so I can see we just have 14 people. I think that should be like 11 people on the call. And I'm not impressed with the numbers though, but yeah, that's fine. So if you have any other question, just go ahead and drop your question, and I will see you in the next class. I will give you 3 minutes to ask a question before I end this session. Just 3 minutes. Go ahead and ask a question on the chat. Okay, yeah, welcome, John. Yeah, so if you have any questions as regards what I said, for the CSS libraries, also ask a question here.